Why? How did this happen? Right after I gave birth to twin girls, my husband left a will and disappeared. At the peak of my happiness, I was suddenly thrown into the depths of despair. I blamed myself intensely for not supporting my husband enough, and cried endlessly. However, a year later, when I went to a park in the neighboring town with my children,
Daddy.
I was shocked to see the man this unfamiliar boy ran up to and hugged. It was my husband, who had been missing. I met my husband Dave, who is 5 years older than me, through a marriage agency, and we got married when I was 30. Since we both worked, we shared the housework, and without having any major arguments, we had a smooth and happy married life. About half a year into this life, we received some wonderful news. Dave, I have big news.
What is it?
I welcomed my husband back home from work with the biggest smile. Don't be shocked when you hear this. Guess what? I'm pregnant.
No way. That's awesome. I'm so happy. So, we'll be a family of 3 now.
Well, actually, it's twins. So we'll be a family of 4.
Twins.
Upon hearing that, he held my hand tightly, and he was genuinely overjoyed with tears in his eyes. Since the day I found out I was pregnant, my morning sickness only worsened, and there were more days when I couldn't manage household chores. However, my husband stepped up to help me during those times, which was a tremendous relief. As time passed, the day finally came when we would find out the baby's gender. My husband said he would come with me to the appointment, so we excitedly headed to the hospital together. The results of the examination revealed that we were expecting 2 girls. Wow! That's great news. Dave, I'm so excited. Beside me, I noticed something off about my husband's demeanor. Hey, what's wrong?
Oh, it's nothing.
Since hearing the gender, my husband's reaction seemed strange. I had expected him to be more joyful, so I began to question his behavior. Even when we went shopping for baby goods after leaving the hospital, I was the only one excited. Hey, how about this? Isn't it cute?
Yeah, it's alright.
What about this one?
Yeah, it's cute.
My husband's responses were just casual nods, and finally, I snapped. Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you even interested at all?
Sorry, I was lost in thought. It just hit me, the realization of becoming a father.
Dave got startled and then sincerely apologized, so I chose to believe his words and let the day pass. Since then, I'd been sick and I was preoccupied with taking care of myself. During this time, my husband's attitude remained strange, and when I sometimes brought up topics about the babies, his responses were nonchalant like oh or I felt frustrated, but dealing with severe morning sickness left me with no energy to argue. Around the 5th month of my pregnancy, my health improved and I was able to return to work, but I noticed my husband started coming home later. Come to think of it, I've been so focused on myself. I should make something delicious for him today. When I contacted Dave, he said he would come home early, so I decided to prepare his favorite meal as a gesture of gratitude. During dinner, we enjoyed having conversations relaxingly for the first time in a while, and his mood improved, so I started to talk about our baby. By the way, it looks like I'll have to have a cesarean section for the birth. So, I'll be admitted to the hospital around the end of the month.
Oh, Is that so?
Will you be okay being alone during that time? My husband responded calmly, without a change in expression, even after hearing about my upcoming hospitalization. I wish he would show more concern. Seeing him not even offering words of concern, I genuinely began to worry if he could really become a father like this. Hey, just a little.
I'm going to take a bath.
He cut me off and hurriedly disappeared into the bathroom. As time passed, he remained indifferent to both me and our unborn baby. Before I knew it, the day of my hospitalization had arrived. Rolling a large suitcase, we completed the formalities at the hospital. Suddenly, the reality of giving birth hit me, and I stopped worrying about my husband. The next day, I safely gave birth to twin daughters via cesarean section, and for the following week until discharge, I didn't contact my husband at all. I assumed he would come to pick me up on the day I left the hospital, but my expectations were dashed. No matter how many times I called, I couldn't reach him, and in the end, I had to complete the discharge process alone and go home by myself. When I opened the door and said I'm home, there was no response, and there was no sign of anyone being there. After putting the children to bed, I looked around the living room and found a letter on the table. What is this? I unfolded the casually folded paper and was shocked. Why would this happen? It was a farewell letter left by my husband. It seemed he felt immense pressure from those around us, including me, constantly reminding him of his role as a father. He also wrote that he couldn't tolerate my attitude of expecting him to work hard to support us while I couldn't work during this period. And finally, it was written.
Please live on and do your best for my sake. Goodbye.
I can't believe I pushed Dave this far. Upon reading my husband's heartfelt cries written in the letter, I intensely blamed myself for not supporting him enough, and I couldn't stop crying. I deeply regretted that I didn't tell him thank you always or thanks to you, even just a little bit. As I collapsed to my knees, crying, I heard my daughters crying, and it snapped me back to reality. That's right. I need to pull myself together. I'm the only one who can protect those girls. I rallied my spirits and resolved to face forward and live on. I filed a report with the police, but my husband's whereabouts remained unknown. People around me speculated that he already passed away as he left a will. It was a tremendous sadness to live positively, but every time I saw my daughters' smiles, I found the strength to keep going and focused on raising them. And so, before I knew it, a year had passed. On a sunny day, I took my daughters to the large park in the neighboring town. When we arrived, the girls were excited to see the sandbox, and they ran towards it with unsteady steps. Don't rush too much. Wait for me. Wait. I chased after my excited daughters, and then saw something shocking.
Daddy.
A boy around the same age as my daughters ran towards a man. No way. I stood there in shock as I looked at the man being hugged by the boy. To my utter disbelief, the man who was called Daddy was unmistakably my husband, Dave, who had passed away a year ago. Why is he here? What on earth is going on? Rather than joy of discovering that he was alive, I was overwhelmed by confusion and disbelief at this situation. Afterward, Dave didn't notice me at all, and left the park with the boy. Anyway, I need to record this. It might be useful for something. I quickly recorded a video on my phone and went back home. I went home feeling confused that day, but I couldn't get it out of my head, so I decided to visit the park again after dropping off my daughters at daycare another day. Even if Dave doesn't show up today, I can come back. I need to investigate anyway. If he was alive, why hadn't he come back to us? As I sat on a bench in the park, unable to shake off the possibility of him having memory loss, Dave and the boy arrived. There was no mistaking it. It was indeed him. For about an hour, I watched them without being noticed. Then I decided to follow them home to find out more about Dave's life. They arrived at a house. When my husband opened the front door and said I'm home, he was welcomed by a woman who looked younger than me. Dave called her Alice and then passionately kissed her right at the entrance. Wow. What are they doing, right in broad daylight? It was undeniable that my husband was living with this woman and the boy. However, considering the age of the boy being closer to my daughter's, I couldn't shake the word cheating from my mind when I tried to piece everything together. I began to suspect that something might have happened during the times my husband came home late, so I decided to investigate as much as I could on my own. And then, I uncovered a shocking truth. After tirelessly collecting evidence for a month, I left my children in the care of my parents, and I was in a restaurant one day. The ones who were having a meal in a private room next to mine were Dave and that woman named Alice. As I strained to listen, I heard they were having a conversation happily.
Anyway, I'm glad it worked out.
Seriously. The farewell letter plan succeeded.
She definitely wouldn't think I'm still alive. I was devastated when I found out she was pregnant with girls.
From their conversation, I understood that the reason Dave disappeared from my life was because of that. Just as he found out that his affair partner was pregnant with a boy around the same time I was pregnant, he abandoned me. Certainly, he had always expressed a desire for a male heir. However, he would cherish and love our daughters once they were born. I unconditionally believed so. But to discover that he cheated during my pregnancy, especially after finding out the baby's gender, was an unforgivable truth. I clenched my fists and quietly opened the door of their private room where they were.
Amber. Why are you here?
As soon as he saw my face, my husband nearly jumped out of his chair and widened his eyes with surprise. What? I could say the exact same thing to you. Why are you here after you left a farewell letter and then disappeared?
Well. That's...
Dave stammered, his eyes darting around nervously. Well, whatever. I figured out the reason from your conversation earlier.
So you were eavesdropping. Well, then let's cut to the chase. Anyway, it's your fault for being a useless woman who can only give birth to girls.
Seeing my husband smirk and insult me without any remorse, I grew disgusted with myself for being married to such a person. Legally, we're still married, so please divorce me.
That's what I want. Let's just get this over with.
Dave casually signed the divorce papers I handed to him, humming to himself. Watching him do so, I quietly spoke up. Then I'll be claiming $20,000 from you as compensation for your infidelity.
Huh? Why do I have to?
At that moment, the woman intervened, calming down Dave, who widened his eyes in shock.
It's fine. Just pay up and let's say goodbye to this old woman.
Oh, why are you acting like it's none of your business? You'll be paying compensation too.
Why me?
As soon as the blame fell on her as well, the woman turned red and started shouting. Of course. You're the mistress of my husband, after all.
You. Are you trying to squeeze money out of both of us? You're horrible.
I can't believe he's saying that. It's beyond infuriating. However, the woman is still raging, her eyes bloodshot and her face contorted in rage like a demon.
You're just jealous because I had a boy. No wonder your husband left you.
Exactly. Alice is the perfect woman for giving me a son and an heir.
Dave said this while looking fondly at the boy who was thrashing around in the stroller next to him. Upon seeing that reaction, I decided to play my trump card. Well, heir. But that baby doesn't resemble you, does it? My husband frowned at my words. And right beside him, I didn't miss the moment the woman's shoulders trembled slightly. Is it really Dave's son?
Huh? What are you talking about? Alice, he's my son, right?
As Dave said this with a half-smile, he looked at the woman whose face turned pale. I shot a cold glance at her in response. Alice, you're 25 years old. Weren't you arrested before for marriage fraud?
Hey, don't say such rude things. That's not true at all.
She denied it vehemently, clearly unsettled, even starting to fidget nervously. I hadn't made such accusations without any evidence. In fact, when I had followed them from the park to the house where they lived, I had quickly recorded on my phone the scene of the two of them being affectionate on the doorstep. When I showed that footage to a friend while seeking advice, he said he'd recognize her. My friend is an active police officer, and he investigated her by using his memory. It turned out Alice had a police record.
Hey, Alice. You.
Dave's gaze towards the woman turned abruptly cold. There's no point wasting any more time. Here, take a look at this. I slammed a photo onto the table. In the photo, Alice and a man in a suit were intimately close, leaning towards each other.
Who is this guy?
Oh, I'll answer that for you. He's her current target.
Huh? Target? What do you mean?
Alice, who had been caught for marriage fraud in the past, couldn't shake off the thrill of manipulating men. Since then, she continued to switch partners frequently, constantly asking for money from different men. When I arrived at her favorite shop, I heard from regular customers there that Alice had bragged about such exploits as a heroic story. Apparently, she had multiple partners even when she met you, so I wondered if that baby there really is Dave's child. I couldn't help but ask. However, my words seemed to fall on deaf ears, and my husband was utterly dumbfounded. If you really want to make sure, why not do a DNA test? Then the woman vehemently shook her head, saying no, no, like a child. It's as if she's already given her answer. Well then, you two should talk. With a wry smile, I held up the signed divorce papers. Then Dave approached me in a pleading tone.
Wait, please give that back to me.
What? The divorce papers? It's too late to take them back now. I'm going to submit them now.
Please, don't say that. I'm begging you. Let's start over.
What? I thought he was joking, but he was serious.
I messed up. But I was deceived too. So, please. Don't leave me.
I'm sorry, but no matter how much you apologize, I can't forgive you. You need to live with your regrets and reflect on what you've done for the rest of your life. I said coldly, pushing him away, and Dave collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Afterward, I divorced my husband and filed a lump sum claim of $120,000 for compensation and child support. I also received $15,000 in compensation from Alice. As I expected, the DNA test confirmed that the child was indeed not Dave's. It sparked a tumultuous situation involving both families. Alice was finally cut off by her own parents, who had reached their limit with her behavior and actions. Dave's involvement in this situation became known at his workplace, leading him to resign due to the scrutiny from his colleagues. Unfortunately, he struggled to find another job and has been making ends meet through temporary day labor jobs. Meanwhile, I returned to my parents' home with my daughters. With their support, I was able to return to work. Things have been going well in my career, but right now, I eagerly look forward to seeing my daughters grow. Seeing them with their backpacks in a different color, holding hands and jumping around, fills my heart with warmth and makes me smile every day.